Yeah. So I had this idea. I thought we can record this for future. So in Kulfi, we can add a new command called, let's say, Kulfi mail. The idea is that we can make existing email clients use Kulfi, like including things like Gmail and Outlook and possibly anything which supports POP and IMAP and SMTP, right? So if you have an email client, let's say Apple Mail, let's talk about the simplest story first, which is let's say an Apple Mail.
Hmm.
Now, if you have an Apple Mail or Pine or any of those mail clients, you need a POP server and a SMTP server, or you need an IMAP server and a SMTP server, right? Depending on what level of. So let's pretend we are looking at a simpler solution. So we're talking about Malay Mail will start both the POP and SMTP servers for you. So it will basically start listening on two ports. Now, how is this port accessible to you from anywhere else? We have to worry about that. Most likely, you're running the Malay mail command on the same machine as you're running your email from, which is not always possible, let's say for iPhone. So in that case,
Hmm.
you may need a service which will do it for you. Basically, that you either run it on IP address that you own because you this port has to be accessible. This has to be a public port, and existing mail clients will be accessing on SMTP and these ports. So obviously, they must be exposed to public ports, right? So they have to be on some sort of public IP with some sort of a port has to be allowed, right? So that is a minimum requirement. You can achieve that by either running the Malay mail on the same machine, so you don't need public IP. You can run it on 127.0.0.1, or in case of if you want to support iPhone or any such case, run it on a machine on AWS or DigitalOcean, or buy the service from fastn tomorrow, whatever, right? So this can kind of fit in the same scheme of things that we can give you some hosted solution where you can't, matlab, if you can use your own DigitalOcean, go ahead and use it, install Malay on it and expose, or you can just, we will do it for you. And that's basically now, how will it work? What would be the extra, right? So when you run Malay Mail, what you get so far currently, if I have to send a mail to you, the mail goes through intermediaries, right? So I will send an email to Gmail or your stuff. We are talking about a mail which goes directly to you, peer to peer. So we're talking about peer to peer mail, no intermediaries, because everyone who runs Malay Mail will get one email, or rather, there. So basically, any email, anything at the rate your ID 52 dot, let's say, um, some subdomain dot kulfi, let's say,
Yeah, we have
or
a public page called kulfi.site, so we can.
kulfi dot site, or not kulfi dot site, because then it will be owned by us. I want
Right.
it to be a virtual email address, which can't be owned by. So it's like that's why I'm saying dot kulfi, not kulfi dot site dot kulfi. It's a TLD that we have invented. So
Okay. Yeah.
now I can send an email to you at Siddhant at your ID 52 dot kulfi, right? And now this mail would not go. Email client will most likely accept it. We might have some email validation rule dot Kulfi. If there really is some email validation rule, we can create some sort of like a .com, and we will just put a rule key in our SMTP server. If the .com, the part before .com looks like an ID 52, it is an ID 52. Try sending it through. So basically, your ID 52 .com can also be considered a dummy thing. Because the point is कि mail client doesn't try to connect to that .com, right? It sends the mail to SMTP server, and it is the job of the SMTP server to connect to that. But the SMTP server is Malay. So Malay Mail is the SMTP server. So Malay will know, okay, this looks like every email that you send will go to Malay. Malay will know, okay, this looks like not a real mail, but a peer-to-peer mail. So peer-to-peer mail, it will then connect to the other peer via the Malay or whatever Kulfi protocol. And we have the ID 52. I will try to connect to your ID 52, and then if that is online, it will deliver the mail. If the email is not online, I don't know what do SMTP servers do. I think they try it for a while and then they send a email. They generate a virtual email and returning to that guy saying ki, I was not able to deliver the email, right? So there's some sort of
Yeah, yeah.
mail message that you receive. But whatever it is, like if it is, it might just go to black hole for like for the simplest this thing. Ki our SMTP server will keep trying, it will queue. So Malay mail, wherever you run Malay mail, it will create because this is your ID 52 you're sharing with the people now. So it has to be more of a permanent thing. So this key you should not lose, right? That's an
Hmm.
important key. So far, the test server were dummy stuff. We regenerated, there was no harm. But here, this email address will get stored in people's address books. So you better not now lose this key. Of course, we can also use our fname stuff.
It's 1
So if
o'clock.
the email is being sent to, let's say, uh, it can be sent to at amity.com. Let's say the Malay server, the Malay SMTP server, it will not only look at our id52.com, it will also look at any .com or any domain, and it will first do a DNS lookup on that domain. And if that DNS lookup says that there is a fname associated with amity.com, let's say you send a mail to amity@amity.com, how do we make sure that now even if as long as I keep amity.com, the mail gets routed directly from peers to me. So basically what will happen is that regular peer mails will look for MX records at amity.com, right?
Hmm.
So I will first look for Kulfi record or K name or F name or whatever we call it. If we find it, then obviously we will not send it to amity.com corresponding MX server. We will send it to the uh, Malay mail, which is running on behalf of Amit. So Amity.com, if Amity is using F name header, Amity must also be running Malay mail somewhere. And that Malay mail would have given you the ID 52, and that ID 52 you are storing in that DNS
Hmm.
F name record. So this is roughly how it will work. And so this way, with very, very minimum amount of work, we have produced a awesome value add for the world right now. I'm saying like, for a moment, we can ignore everything else we have done. This is an idea of that merit. Ki Malay Mail can actually start being used by all sorts of privacy. Like you don't have to go to Proton Mail now. You can just and we are just that storage, right? So we will have to run that Malay on your behalf, and obviously, um, so it also has revenue potential, more or less, right? So, uh, yeah.
Okay, let me see if I understand. So we are looking at adding a feature to Malay, which is effectively an email client, right? So if I am trying to send an,
Not client, email server. Client would be whatever client you're using.
but that's one question, like how do you integrate this into a third party client? Let's say Apple
Because
Mail
they
or
already use SMTP and POP. So SMTP, so when you create and set up a new email client, it will ask you what is your POP server, yeah, IMAP server. So incoming mails come via POP and IMAP, and outgoing mails go via SMTP. And these are both standard protocols that every email client is supporting. That's how email works. Now, whether Gmail can we deliver the mail inside Gmail, that's a different question. Technically, answer is probably yes, because I think I've seen those stuff. So I don't know about how will we make it use SMTP, but at least we can make your emails go and sit inside. Matlab, you can read the emails from inside SMTP from Gmail, that we can ensure. If a email is being composed from Gmail, I don't know. But again, I'm saying let's not analyze two things together. Let's pretend we are not looking at Gmail, or because whatever I'm saying may be true for Gmail may not be true for Outlook.
yeah.
So how do we get your existing email hosting system to work with our stuff? I do not know. So this email address, when you try to send an email from Gmail, it will fail. So this whole Gmail email infrastructure that we are talking about in the first version, like I'm saying in the second version, we can try to make it work in Gmail also. So let's park that Gmail. How will we make it work with Gmail as a separate problem? We'll discuss later on, so that
Hmm.
this discussion remains slightly simpler. Now let's talk about we are basically launching Malay Mail, which will basically kind of only work if you have a email client, which every iPhone guy has a email client. I'm pretty sure Android has an email client, every Mac has an email client, Windows may Outlook is an email client, right? So we have an email client is one of the most standard stuff. Obviously, a lot of people have gotten lost in touch with email clients and they are so dependent on Gmail now. For them, mail is Gmail, and what is an email client will not come to them, etc. as an obvious thing. But let's pretend, okay, we are not talking about that. We are talking about the geekier people who understand email clients exist, and if they get an SMTP and POP server, they can continue to use. So the beautiful thing about this is that we can get a lot of Malay mail usage with only those people who are only comfortable with email clients, because they don't necessarily need any other tooling other than running Malay mail somewhere. Because like for every email address you have to have a Malay mail has to run, or rather for every ID52 Malay mail has to run, and on that machine you'll have to store your emails, so it should be acting as a, it should have space also, right? Like, so that's what we will give. So either, so when you need Malay run, so for this to happen, sorry, Malay mail, so for this to happen you have to run Malay mail somewhere, right? And when you run Malay mail somewhere, and obviously there's nothing stopping you from running Malay mail for the entire family for that matter. So our SMTP aware, so the SMTP server and the POP server, etc., can be all mailbox aware. So at the same, so Malay mail will not only handle for every email address that you receive, at the the prefix part, like something at id52.com is the email address we are saying. So that something part, the username part, can be any number of, so you can share that with your entire family also. So let's say Malay Mail will create some sort of password file, because you'll have to do some authentication. So Malay Mail may, when you run Malay Mail, it will do some sort of, because that authentication has to be done by email client. So the SMTP aware authentication has to be implemented, which has to be a username password based, because that's what SMTP supports. So username password is asked for it. You will, so a password has to be generated and stored on the Malay Mail side. And now you can create that same server. Let's say if you have a server, you can share it with all your family. So you can create email address for brother, sister, father, mother, whatever, or maybe for your company. So you can even say, okay, we run this entire mail for my company, and in my company I've got like 100 GB of storage available to us, and each mailbox, each username will get a mailbox on that particular. So Malay Mail is going to be your full mail server, right? So we are becoming the mail server, and it is a peer-to-peer mail, and it kind of just works. It's very minimum, just making sure okay, Malay supports POP and SMTP on our side, which is relatively not very hard protocols.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure Rust crates are available, so we can support Malay mail feature and start sending emails to each other. And yeah. And we
Yeah,
launch it on Hacker News and everywhere. We make it a product basically. Malay Mail is a full-time product. Whether we call it Malay Mail, Fast Mail, all of those stuff, we can figure that out. Uh, but we are talking about, we are launching peer-to-peer mail, and it will require a Malay cloud or whatever, Malay Mail cloud. Or so again, nomenclature would be that. Do we want to have a cloud? So now, because we have discussed Fastn cloud and Pista cloud, now there's a Malay cloud. So it's becoming too much. So maybe we figure out. So that strategy about how do we figure out what do we call it and branding is a separate story. But what I'm trying to say is that this is the main product, let's say, for a while, because this
mm,
has both. It is relatively easy to build and for us,
yeah,
and also obviously it has revenue potential, and it is a strongish need, right? So a lot of people, you can imagine, people who are looking at Proton Mail would want to switch to it. People who are running email server at home, people who want to be free of Google dependence, right? Because you're giving independence to you, you can run a mail without buying a domain, right? This is a brilliant thing, and that mail will never not be readable by anyone other than your the mail would just go into it, so it avoids all the email related stuff problems, right? So we will obviously have to deal with spam and other situations, but because our POP and SMTP are, so spam will not. Abhi outsiders, whoever has to send a mail must have access to Malay mail from basically.
Hmm.
That becomes a prerequisite. So you can keep on sending mail to outside world. I don't know actually even know how will that work because that would be a invalid email address, right? So technically you can send it. So can I send it from amityu at my id52.com to amityu at gmail.com? Let's say. Just give me one second. Letting the world into the public email internet and the peer-to-peer peer Malay mail internet. And Malay mail people can mail each other, but they can't mail. You can't cross the boundaries.
Yeah.
But your software can use. Okay, software will use multiple SMTP servers. You'll have to put some. If you have multiple SMTP servers, you need some sort of routing guideline. Okay, if the email is going to this dot let's say we call it sub instead of dot com or whatever some rules we have to specify the email client. If you have more than one SMTP, how does it pick, right? So sometimes it picks based on whichever okay, we'll worry about technical aspect, how to make it work and so on. But yeah, let's pretend this is a purely peer-to-peer email universe. The neat thing that I'm liking about this plan is key we don't have to build a single UI because
Yeah.
we're relying on email client. So we are not minus in any sense. On day one, we are as good as regular email, unless of course you believe Gmail interface is better than Apple Mail. But that's a very subjective kind of
Yeah.
thing. Email is good enough used by a lot. I actually quite used it for quite some time. So yeah, so we are not losing when will we add attachment feature or like none of those questions really going to come to us. They will. Of course, the thing is key. Our mail server has to become more featureful. Like I mentioned, for every username we need to have a separate mailbox possibly.
Yeah.
You want to store backups and like what happens when the mail is, and you have to retry sending mail possibly when the first time the other peer was down. So we need some retry and this thing was there. So yeah, so I mean to say, a mail server will have enough complication. There might be spams that we have to start. You know, people will start using their. If you find out my ID, you might just start using spam because if my ID is known. But again, my ID is very hard to discover in this scenario, first of all. So I will only share my ID with few of the people. And I can even create multiple IDs because it doesn't, but I can create 10,000
Hmm.
IDs and for every .com, I can send a new ID. Or rather, every app or software that I'm dealing with who needs my email address, I can send a new email address to that fellow so that it's very limited, right? So again, but these all features we'll have to add. Okay,
Yeah.
then if you have multiple IDs, they still should not lead to multiple mailboxes. So there should be only one email box identity from your email client point of view, even if you have lots of IDs and and so on. So here what we will be building is the Malay mail
Hmm.
part, which will be first the server minimally, and then it will become like the mailbox manager, and then higher rules about the stuff that we mentioned. At that, what we'll have to build is the the cloud side of it, right? So in cloud, we will have to run a separate Malay for everyone, or do some sort of Malay which can run for multiple people, and so on. And at the reach, I think we'll have to listen for every IRO that is there, right? Because at least that many IRO servers should be running, whether they are running on a separate Docker container or they are running as a single service. It's all we have to figure that out. Um,
Yeah, that all can come in later versions. We can still like a very simple SMTP server. Everyone who wants to use it can has to spin up a Malai invocation. So that we can start with, and that still is a usable thing.
Mhm.
And we can like look for if people want this, then we can start looking across if we want to support. How do we support Gmail, or how do we support
Actually,
multiple mail?
I feel like even better solution would be because Malai Mail, Malai can always expose an HTTP service through your bridge. You can even provide an email client, webmail, right?
Yeah.
So Malai Mail will not only run the mail's SMTP and POP server, it will also run an HTTP server,
Although
which will be
I'm thinking more in terms of if you can take a Thunderbird client and
so
use
that to be
that,
running as
because
soon as POP and email, so that is there.
right.
So thinking for your client, so Thunder Mail, Apple Mail, all of those clients, you only Malai only need to expose POP and SMTP,
Hmm.
right? I am saying कि Malay can mail can choose to also expose a web service.
Like
So whatever is your ID, so if you enter that ID dot kulfi dot site, you can go and you can access a webmail or UI basically. So you can see your emails and you already have established some username password based authentication for SMTP. So you can
hmm,
use the same username password to log in through your webmail. And now through your webmail, you can access your mail without having any client or so you're not dependent on Gmail. You're not dependent like so if Malay Mail is running anywhere, you know you don't need any client. That Malay Mail itself is accessible to you via the Kulfi bridge thing. So if you want to use it with your, because our client will be at the very beginning inferior. It all feature by feature we'll have to build, or we'll have to figure out some other webmail client basically and integrate it with our solution. That might be easier thing to do actually. If we can find out some webmail client, right? There must be PHP mail or whatever. There must be a lot of mail
hmm,
clients. You should find obviously which doesn't add. I want Malay mail to remain Rust as much as possible.
yeah,
So if we ended up picking a webmail for webmail, we end up picking some PHP based solution or Django based solution. Then we are adding that dependency and making it that much harder for us because that we have to run on the cloud also. So if we have to run 1,000 instances, we have to worry about key, can that be should it be Dockerized or not, and so on, right? So, I mean, my preference would be obviously we use fastn for this and created a great because if I have to invest in the usability, etc., of something, I would rather because a mail is a very obviously mail was going to come, and mail is also very crucial to whatever we are doing, right? We are going to have notes. So we said, no, okay, we'll look at the entire of Apple set of tools that so notes, reminder, mail. So suddenly we have a mail as a very big. So yeah, so that's my thought, which you can extend to Pigeon by the way. So you know Pigeon, PIDGI.
I don't.
Share and Google. The I'm saying share your screen and
Oh, my screen is already there. You can ask me. Then. I could just. I thought that you were sharing the link to that.
your screen is not shared
Uh, oh, acha, I mean it is getting recorded.
though. So you can show
Yeah.
to me.
What did you want to do?
PIDGIN, Pigeon chat. Google it.
Sorry, I thought you were saying engine.
PIDGIN. PIDGIN.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ah, I don't know why I was engine. Do they have a image or something?
So
No,
basically,
no.
we can create. So they have a plugin infrastructure.
Okay.
So my point is, ki, the okay. Let me take it a high level. I'm thinking whatever we did for Malay Mail, can we do the same thing for Malay Chat? If there was Malay Mail, we had an existing protocol, which
Yeah.
meant we had an existing clients. So we are saying our client is our problem. So can we apply the same approach by saying, okay, Pigeon, for example, if Pigeon supports a lot of this thing platform, so we can create, let's say, Malay Pigeon. or Malay chat, which will work with Malay Pigeon, or sorry, which will work with the Pigeon. So we will have to create a plugin in Pigeon which will work with Malay. So now suddenly we give people on day one without much work. Basically, the strategy is the same. We try to use so we'll do three step way, right? First, we will create some sort of uh, uh, um, existing client whatever solution, so that we don't have to write client, and we will then build the feature. You're getting like with just by building SMTP and POP, we can just build a whole Malay mail feature. I'm saying with just that Pigeon also we can make it work. So Malay chat or Malay Pigeon, right? Depending on if it's a general purpose chat protocol or it's a very specific to Pigeon. So ideally, we can create, let's say, a chat protocol if there is no chat protocol, and then we can create the first version of it. Let's say using Malay so that we don't have to build a chat UI. So the first step is always that in both these scenarios, and we can then extend it to more protocols for that matter. But for mail and chat, we figure out some sort of protocol and we figure out some sort of client. So in mail, maybe we have a lot of clients. In chat, we have to figure out Pigeon is one. There might be more chat clients which might have pluggable infrastructure so that they can connect with more than one, like Google Talk and all of that, WhatsApp and so on. Right? So that's the whole idea of these kind of pigeon-like apps. Okay, they can connect with lots of different chat solutions. So we start with pigeon in case of chat, there is no standard protocol, unfortunately. In case of mail, we have standard protocols. In case of chat, we will be creating a non-standard protocol. And then we have to go client by client. So all the open source client will have the support for that. For non-closed, non-open source client, we will then have to ask that team support, like how do we, because we can give them documentation, we can give them developer support or whatever to integrate with Malay chat, right? If there's some chat app is there, tomorrow we can even create some sort of Discord chat app bridge. Key any message you send on, I don't know what could it be, because as long as Discord bot is there, maybe we can do something which will automatically send any message and there also on Discord for just mirror it. And I don't think there's anything stopping from a bot, Discord bot, to becoming like a full two-way proxy. Any message that is received on this channel will automatically be sent over peer-to-peer to that other guy and so on, right? So that way you can create like a, so anyway, so we can create a client by client strategy in case of chat about what to do. And then, and even for chat, our bridge can take care of it, right? So the bridge pay, you'll get at least one chat UI, which may not be as powerful as Pigeon, but at least you can see the conversations and reply to them and so on. So basically that's the idea. So we have got to discuss two different ideas. We'll start with mail, which is way more straightforward. So basically what I'm saying is the Pista, which introduces multiple things, basically auto merge and the identity and the relationship. These are all, how do I say, things which we have to build. These become blocker in our Pista release. Like when we are talking about building Pista pad, we have to build all of these stuff. The platform has to be ready. The how do I add a friend? How do we auto merge thinking? So that's a longer plan. And if we make that a blocker, we might not even be able to release this month. Right? So therefore, this is an alternate plan that I'm proposing now. This only requires POP SMTP. It has some revenue potential. It is not a one I totally anticipate it can become big. It's not like a random. It could have been a startup on its own. Because you're trying to solve peer-to-peer mail. Peer-to-peer mail deserves a domain and that level of this thing. But we'll keep it now. Whether domain branding, we'll have to figure out. Are we calling it Malay Mail or are we calling it Fastn Mail? And there's no reason not to call Fastn Mail for that matter. Sure, because everything boils down to what the fuck is Fastn suddenly, right? Because then it's, I don't know if it's a good thing or bad, but we are like Emacs, right? We are like, I don't know, I don't know what to say, because we are building the language and the server and the networking. Why not email also now, right? So I don't know what we are, but that's a totally different and existential question for us. Why the fuck are we looking at such a broad spectrum. We're never going to be VC funded. They will never understand what the fuck is going on. These guys are totally crazy. Maybe I'm crazy. You're real, right? Never
Yes,
met
I
me, but
am.
you'll believe it. Okay. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, we can think about pending later. That always gets us
Huh.
confused.
Yeah. It will definitely require some more thought. I will also spend some more thought creating a strategy.
Yeah,
But let's default to fast in mail, and fast in cloud will support mail. Let's default to that because like I don't want to have all these description on Malay mail and then end up dropping it and
yeah, I agree. The
so
existence
now
of fastn cloud offering makes sense to have a like a mail server. It sounds almost equivalent to what Proton currently is. They have a mail service and other services.
plus Apple has done it, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely. When they launched photos and stuff, they also launched mail. They had to launch mail. It's
yeah,
just it's there. It's so dependent. If you're talking about a future world where we are not dependent on SaaS, one of the things that we are most dependent on is mail. So obviously, cutting the mail cord should be one of the first thing that we are looking at a distributed feature, right? And a distributed feature, at least mail should become distributed, and we can take a significant step towards it. So Fastn is about peer-to-peer distributed world, right? So this is Fastn inventing a new internet, a new way of doing development, which is fully from ground up peer-to-peer distributed, right? Like the current way of doing internet, everything else from Rails to Django to everything was we are in a SaaS world or whatever, which is not distributed, centralized world. So we are a decentralized stuff. So Fastn is about decentralized stuff. And decentralization requires a good language so that ordinary people can write code. It requires a great platform. It requires auto merge. It requires mail. It requires like because we have a database, there's no reason why we can't have also mail, and we should randomly definitely do. So I think the case is made. Ki Fastn mail is what we are talking about.
yeah,
So we launch Fastn, and how do we launch it? Because this would be a mindfuck to people who are already have some understanding about what Fastn is.
yeah,
To them, Fastn mail would be like, what the fuck is going on? But that's all right. Let's try to solve that problem. Let's update our fastn.com homepage somehow so that it makes sense because it does make sense to me. And because and they have not seen any of those stuff, right? Ki why internet, why fastn TV, all of those stuff will be putting the same question mark. Ki, okay, fastn looks like to be a much bigger project than
right.
what current com says, and which is the reality. So we definitely are building all of those stuff, and we are going to announce it. So there's no harm in trying to announce it now and put this thing ki Fastn mail exists. So obviously this one we will not build inside the pista pad wala Fastn. This Fastn will go to Fastn. This is the main thing. It might be built as a inside Kulfi as a separate crate. Like the entire functionality of Fastn mail could be Malay mail. So you can run Malay mail also independently if you really wanted to, let's say. But what we are launching is Fastn mail. So Malay mail is available to you as Fastn mail as well. And from the hygiene of development practice, it might be a good idea to keep the Fastn mail related stuff entirely in a separate repo for that matter, right? Even maybe we should not mix it with Malay Kulfi, but Malay Kulfi is so tiny so far that I feel like adding a whole
Hmm.
mail functionality doesn't feel too scary. But Fastn is so big that putting a whole Malay mail feels scary to me. So
Yeah,
let's develop it as a standalone Malay feature. So we'll for a while we will only run Malay mail, but once we are ready with it, we are thinking of launching it. We'll switch to making Fastn mail work with the
mhm,
same semantic. And again, at that time, we have to go and rebrand Kulfi now. So I'm thinking Kulfi is going to go out. The Kulfi.site
yeah,
is not going to be there because the URL that will be a fastn.site or some other .com you have to
yeah.
purchase.
I think we have talked about this.
Yeah, I'm very happy with the plan in general. What's your general?
Yeah, I agree. So everything that is having fastn cloud and fastn email, that makes sense. And the
Mhm.
confusing part that existing people think that fastn is just a framework that has to go away at some point. So we have to figure out how do we do that. But it actually kind of like we are forcing us to like in current situation we are looking. like a cloud company, but under the hood, we are not really a centralized cloud company, but our services make us look like that. So it is something that we will see. We have to come up with a better marketing story and anyways.
Yeah. No, it does look like, I'm saying it, that's what I'm saying is SaaS is not all bad. SaaS is convenience. Just
Hmm.
that the way SaaS is done, which is by capturing the protocol. We are not doing that. So all the communication that is happening Malai to Malai, which is
Right.
open source. So unlike Gmail or every other SaaS captures the protocol, right? There's a protocol only to use Gmail. The only API that they expose is very not well documented, and their clients anyways use more APIs than they end up documenting. So they are capturing. We are not capturing. We are saying ki we are create. It's like we're literally launching a mail equivalent, right? Where
Hmm.
so I feel like there is absolutely no harm in launching Gmail because Gmail is not owning mail. Gmail
Yes.
is simply the experience, right?
It's
So you
1:30.
are as happy. You can. There's nothing really stopping anyone to create a fast and computer, fast and cloud computer. I mean to say, key like fast and cloud will only work as long as we have great experience or great pricing and great uptime and great quality of the feature that users are going to demand. The moment somebody overtakes us in delivering those stuff, they will start getting more market share. And we are like happy with it. We are happy to lose that market share to a, which is not happens in SaaS. In none of the SaaS, you have this situation, ki, the moment people they don't have the choice. Here we have full choice. We just gave you a convenience. If you want to use our journey, sure. And that convenience might be slightly deeply linked with our product as a conversion funnel optimization. But if someone who is really interested in using something else, I'd like consider people who use Microsoft. They don't just click just because the prompt was saying use Gmail, right? They'll not switch to Gmail just because the quick prompt. Like people who want to use Microsoft Team or whatever Microsoft Outlook, they'll go out of their way hiring respective teams, etc. And then so they for them the reality is and that is a real question. Okay, see what we have to do is we have to make faster and everything sucks. So for that reason, our service has to be the best service at least on day one,
Hmm.
because we are the only one who can define what the cloud should look like. No one else knows how the cloud looks like because the shape of what Fasten is, what kind of dependency, which kind of APIs you're going to need, is so in flux that for a while we will, and we have to do a great job there. We have to make sure that our services don't go down, etc. So that people, right? So that's what I'm saying. So we have this inherent advantage and we can't wish it away, and we don't want to wish it away. It gives us more money because we know what is coming and no one else knows. For a while, Fasten Cloud would be the best cloud for the simple reason that the next version of feature that Fasten is going to introduce, which is only in your and my head, we will be working both on the cloud side and the client side simultaneously. And whenever we do the launch, we will launch both of them. So for
Hmm.
every feature that we launch in Fasten, we will have an edge. And that's the reality. We can't really, just to make it open, we can't say, okay, every feature that we are doing now, we will be announcing to the whole world. Maybe if we create a Fasten consortium, and that's why we have our open source thing also, right? Like we do want to do that. We want to spin off Fasten as a consortium, as the way Python Foundation is there or whatever. See, at some point we are there only as a this thing representative, and then Fasting Cloud would become like a biggest sponsor or whatever of that, and we will want to do it the right way. And so that's a clear idea. That's why we are separate from other SaaS. Not only we are doing it, this thing we are trying to make sure it is really, and that's how it should be done, I believe. When you are launching a new protocol, you should launch the protocol in open way. But for a while, the best client for that protocol would be your client. That's a reality. If the email was being launched today, you'd not just launch SMTP and POP. You'll have to launch the Gmail or any webmail equivalent on day one. And that would be a software that is not open source, right? Because you're not going to, because you're launching a protocol. You're not launching that. So even if that is open source, most likely Gmail will not fork it, and that will be a rewrite, because that's what you do when you launch a protocol. You expect people to use their technology that they are familiar with and write the implementation of that protocol from scratch in that language. Like every protocol, like Python has great HTTP support.
Hmm.
Apple should have great faster mail support at some point. Today they doesn't. Like today their SMTP clients will require SMTP queue runs, but tomorrow, for example, that SMTP client, if they have access to the ID52, etc., keys, etc., they can just send directly peer-to-peer from that very machine without having to run Malai as a separate service and so forth.
Yeah.
Right. So whatever we are doing, we are launching a protocol, and even the code that we are doing is not the main delivery. So even whether Malai was open source or not, if the protocol was open source, it was, we would have still done good, and it is totally justifiable for us to do that, to launch a protocol, just the protocol as open protocol, give this guarantee that our client, which is closed source, happens to be faithfully following the protocol specs. It is not going to have some extra features, and our client is also following that, and all of these are closed source. I'm saying, ethically speaking, is still great thing to be done, right? Like this is perfectly, if you say Chrome, etc., constantly do that. They introduce some new CSS spec, and then they might be whatever, right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong in having closed source stuff. There's nothing wrong. We are doing absolutely ethical stuff, and it will give us some advantage, and that advantage is needed. That's not my point. If you do not have that advantage for a while, because we are the only people who can mold this project right now, right? Like, it's not ready right now for us to have 10 people who are in the room and suddenly they have voting power and they have no idea what are we talking about.
Yeah.
So the whole vision that we have, that everything should be peer to peer, money should be still possible to be made, and so on, right? Like this, you're looking at some very complicated stuff which has been not done. Like, currently the world knows, how to do the centralized stuff. Who is the one who is architecting the decentralized world? And so we are going to be uh, inventing this thing new, and I'm pretty sure we will find a lot of like-minded people and so on. And when we have them, we will be happy to go to the foundation, kind of fashion foundation route, when we feel like when people are coming to us with genuinely appreciating our vision, we're genuinely aligned with our vision, right? So that is when I'm happy to do. But if they're coming to us because they want to fund us and somehow control us, that would be very scary for me, and that should remain a concern for everyone. And we should, we clearly, you and me clearly have this ideas about how software should be, not just we are doing fasting for money, right? So if someone comes and have offers us money, I'm happy to say no to that money to keep the vision alive, right? So, and for us to be able to say no to outsiders, we must be making money, right? If we are all dependent on money, then we will be forced to. So therefore, it is very good thing that Fasten, which is completely open source, so it's not sufficient. Like, we could have stopped at just open sourcing the protocol, but we have open sourced the protocol, we have open sourced the entire client. And why are we feeling that we have to justify cloud integration, etc., is there, right? So
Mm.
obviously it's fairly ethical thing stuff that we are doing. We don't need justification here. We will have an advantage, and that advantage will be there for a while, till we are no longer the main decision makers. As long as we'll have the main decision maker, we'll have some information that will give us. We will try to be fair. Let's say if you and me are working on some feature, most likely we'll not start working on this feature privately. Like, what are we doing on this mail?
Yeah.
And in this recording, we are actually sharing this recording with the world so that they are aware. And I'm not hiding this. Okay, that gives us that extra edge. So if someone wants to copy our ideas, we are going to be building it, and we are going to be here. That is the main important thing. If somebody who copies, who are they, right? What are they doing? What is their agenda? Do you want to support them? Most likely, our agenda, we are the superior people for that's what I'm saying. That is why what gives us this, and we have spent 4 5 years on it, right? We are not some unknown people suddenly coming up. So, okay, so even somebody folks said we don't mind. So we'll keep
Yeah.
on sharing all those ideas, and let's see what happens. Okay, so I think the idea wise we are clear. In terms of, obviously we have to launch the sustainability one. That is the first one. Uh, I don't know what do we do about this recording, because this is not launchable, or maybe we create some sort of just a
Oh, do
launch
you want to
announcement.
do you want me to stop the recording? Yes, are we done?
We can record it and we can cut it
Ah,
if we feel like it's not relevant.
okay.
So yeah, so I was saying,
We have to do
so
the blog launch first and then.
yeah, so I was saying ki, so far we were working on some plans. Plan A was we finishing Pista pad as the highest priority. and doing some marketing. This is how we were, and the split was me doing Pistapad and you doing marketing for our. Now, in the light of this conversation, do we want to revise our plan? Okay. I am suggesting because matlab you might again it's not really an old idea. This idea actually fully came to me half an hour before this call. But what do you think first? How should we revise? Should we revise the plan? Continue with it?
Well,
Have
I
you?
think there is a good angle to this, uh, which I'll explain. So you are very conveniently working on this topic, which is nice. I am till now trying to do marketing, right?
I think I
Which,
got your point.
right? So, but I am not writing any code, and I want to write some code. So I can take this email, Malay email thing, learn about it, experiment. How do we wrap existing protocols, stuff like that. This also gives us content. How do you write a like? How do you make IDO work with this? Good content, good
Yeah.
blog post. Why not? So,
Yeah.
right, we talked about coming up with marketing ideas, and right now we have talked about stuff, but they were not real technical stuff. But if I start writing code, I can talk about that code. Like this is how you do how you write a mail app in Rust or something. Yeah. So this is like a really nice split. I get to work on Malay mail and I get to work on it slow enough that I can also churn out some marketing content that are just focused on this. Because I think after making this blog about our company, there is not really much to talk about in terms of the open space, right? Like we can, what else do we really talk about other than, right? So that's my idea that you work on Vistapad, I work on Malang, and I also do some marketing on the side.
So first of all, brilliant idea. Obviously, it aligns very, very well with like the brilliance. You get it, I get it. It's at least I don't know if the audience is getting, but whatever we are doing, it aligns very, very well with that. Brilliant. I was thinking, let's go one further step because what you're saying is, this is acting as a dual purpose of marketing, and also we can build fast and mail in public.
Yes.
Right, so that's the content strategy. Like I'm saying, you're saying that this fast and mail is giving you some content to be put. I'm just taking that line and refining it, and I'm saying what we are doing is, let's take this fast and mail, because here we are, like this call, this video is excellent, that I am now very, very glad we recorded it. I'm saying let's just release this video unedited,
That's okay.
right? So that anyone who knows or hears about fast and mail now knows exactly what is the thought process going on. It's like they let the parts that we might have doubt about still stay here, so that it becomes very authentic realization of this thing about what we are. So so this becomes our first video. So we are basically launching a video content, right? So we can technically launch this on Hacker News. Hey, we are, how do I say, launching Malay Mail. We are working on Malay Mail. This is the idea. So we can just launch this idea, this video, and some sort of like a. So we can spend, let's say, a week. I would say even before you start coding, let's do the right thing and try to create some sort of design documentation or some documentation of what we are going to do. So create some sort of like a mini plan, not a very long plan, but at least for what we are going to do in next 2 3 steps, right? So what is the first thing we can launch, right? And potentially what is the second thing we can launch, and for the first thing what we can launch, what is our exact technical plan? So for example, the first launch could be we'll launch Malay Mail without, or rather we will launch Fast and Mail only because of the reason that we said. So the first release to me should be Fast and Mail. So we are working towards Fast and Mail launch. And for Fast and Mail, yeah. So this is this. So we will you will help us create the first version of what is the meaning of Fast and Mail launch in terms of technical terms. Okay, what all we have to build? What is the minimum one?
Yeah.
Then we'll do the second launch, which is the either the fastn mail ka corresponding cloud portion or the webmail portion, right? The HTTP email that I mentioned. So one of the two can be our second step. We'll figure that out. Uska detail we don't have to put, but at least the first one, which is the getting the email client and email sending back to back, that is our fast mail MVP launch that we are gearing towards, which will take, let's say, just some randomly putting a month, right? I have no idea how long will it take, but it will, let's say, take off the order of a month, just two protocols to implement, so it doesn't look too heavy, and so on, right? So now people can, so we are inviting people to come along. You can be part of at least the, and we do as much of coding in video, right? So you where you keep giving your ideas, and or at least you do live coding as much as possible. So and do live coding video on video, and we'll create, let's say, in our podcast a series also, like the series which is each of them episode is not part of the podcast per se, but there's like a single one that is this one, which will be the second episode, and then post second one we will do a bunch of, like, the whole week you will be recording. So the idea is that after this recording will go to the as the second podcast, but subsequently when you're creating a lot of videos, because if I want every coding session, including your cloud, etc., I'm just saying let it be on, like, just do a screen recording of that. There's no harm there, and every discussion that we have about that product, let it be also recorded, right? So that we are building the fast and mail completely in public. So this will hopefully invite those people who want to contribute and align with our vision, etc., to come and contribute, and this way we'll have great content. We will solve the problem that we always have, which is we end up writing so much code and we have nothing to show for it. So we are doing almost, obviously we are not saying necessarily every single code that you write will be recorded, but as, like, let's err on the other side where we are oversharing instead of extremely undersharing things, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
whichever you feel fair. So, but we tend to try to do that. We officially are coding in public. We are officially building fast and mail in public, right? So fast and mail is what we are building. August is going to be our fast and mail. Let's say we are building fast and mail in public. You're the primary coder. You're the primary whatever. I will continue on the Pista and other stuff, or I will also come along and support. We'll figure that out. How to what can we do. So yeah, so we launched this video, put it as is, and not worry about cutting and editing videos, because then we will not be able to do the stuff that we are doing. It has to be extremely casual. Uh, this one is the second podcast of our launch,
Yeah.
which will launch on, let's say, coming Monday to Hacker News. So for the next launch, the blocker would be you writing some sort of more concrete plan about technically how will it work, and and then maybe you can present that plan itself in a video. Okay, how will it work? Some details, technical details. So far, we've not discussed technical details. I'm saying, imagine a person who has no idea about Malai or
Right.
how things. So that's the so you can start with that, or maybe that could be the third video, which will keep for the third launch, which would be like a good explainer. So maybe explainer we will work next week. This week we will simply work on whatever you feel like working on. Like now I have coding as wise. Like this month we are launching fast and mail. Now you know what is the expected. Now you do a backward planning. How what can we do, and start working on, and whichever task you pick. Okay, this is the first thing I'm going to work. Just record that video instead of giving bigger context and explainer kind of material. Just code whatever you naturally code and record it so that people can, and speak out loud during coding, so that your thought process also is captured or something like that. But in terms of fasten direction, fifth right direction, fasten mail as a peer-to-peer, I think it's a good idea, right? Like as a first, compared to Pista, you agree on that? Pista required way more features to be live, auto merge to be live, and
Yeah.
document syncing is a peer-to-peer document syncing with permission. It's a bigger project, right? So obviously breaking it down into just prove, because this will help us prove the networking part even more, and it will obviously hopefully start getting us some revenue, right? So these are the two reasons, because technically it's a lot less work, and the second because it has a potential of, despite a lot less work, it has a potential of us making enough money that we're worried, well, we're free from all the other um, money concerns, right? So and obviously it can help start getting us in front of people sooner. So obviously, we will have more stars and more opportunity to have more, etc. So what is possible for us to achieve in 2025 goes up if we do. So I think this launches. So therefore, I'm feeling comfortable as a just thinking. Let's just stop what we are doing and focus on this as the highest priority. Right. We'll
Yeah.
pass the chat also. Chat is also a great idea, but this has to be uh, our first one.
Mm. So, I think in terms of what's next to do, I think I have some idea. I have to like come up with a concrete technical approach to how this will work. We will let's talk about it in the third episode. Because so if you can validate all of the stuff that I come up with, then I can just go on YouTube Live and start coding and figure out other stuff in the process. I think that's a good enough plan.
Cool, man.